Okay, so getting back into our coverage over the X-Men, we do pick up with Excalibur issue number 4 as we continue our coverage over the Age of Apocalypse universe. Now, here's the thing, because we have now reached a point where we're almost done with our coverage over this event, where all the different X books that were being used at the time to tell the storyline for Age of Apocalypse, they all stopped at issue number 4, except for X Universe, that ended at issue number 2. But when it came to all the different X books, they all led into X-Men Omega, which was a proper ending for the original storyline of Age of Apocalypse. And the reason why I say the original storyline, because in the mid-2000s, you had Marvel go out of their way to revisit this world to give us another storyline that took place in this reality, which we're going to cover down the road in later parts of our coverage over the X-Men, but for the time being, we're only focusing on the original storyline for Age of Apocalypse. But getting back into our coverage over Excalibur with issue number 4, we do pick up with Nightcrawler, Mystique, and Switchback. Now, at the end of our last video, our heroes were attacked by Wade Wilson of this reality, and also Danmask as well, but she kind of had switched sides, and the reason why, because once she had arrived at Avalon, she kind of realized that in this world, there are still beautiful places where humans and mutants can live together. And matter of fact, when it comes to Avalon, it was this beautiful place in the Savage Land where humans and mutants had the ability to live together and be away from Apocalypse forces. But either way, when it came to Danmask and Wade Wilson, they came here to burn down Avalon. Well, they failed. Danmask is on the side of good now, and Wade was killed off by Nightcrawler. Now, with all that being said, it's now time for our heroes to get Destiny back over to America, because for Magneto, he needs Destiny's help to kind of figure out if what Bishop says is true, that this reality should not exist at all. Now, with all that being said, you do have Switchback get a headache. Now, for the longest time, we had no idea what her ability was, but it does seem like she has the ability to kind of rewind herself in time. Not like go back in time completely, but like 10 seconds or possibly 20 seconds. And the only reason why we know that, because she gets a headache and she goes back in time to the point where she does not have a headache anymore. Now, that headache is really important for the rest of this video. But while you have our heroes trying to find Destiny in Avalon, they're kind of seeing the damage that Wade Wilson had done in a very short period of time. Now, they do run into Cypher. And remember that in this timeline, for Cypher, he is the adoptive son to Destiny. Now, for Mystique, she had no idea that Destiny had a son in the first place. But it's also Mystique kind of assuming that Cypher must be some kind of human, because he didn't use his mutant ability to fight against Wade Wilson nor Danmask. But it's also Cypher saying, you are completely wrong. Like, hey, I am a mutant. I have the ability to understand any language across the universe. Now, with all that being said, it's also Cypher saying, like, do you really think my mother is going to leave with you guys because of the possibility of this reality being an alternate timeline that it should not exist at all? That sounds completely wild and crazy. But you didn't have, I want to say Switchback, sorry. You have Switchback tell Cypher, is it really that crazy as it sounds? Like, you have Apocalypse, this powerful mutant with all these different abilities being able to take over North America. You have other mutants out there that have wild different types of abilities as well. But that's not weird to you. But the idea of the possibility that this could be an alternate timeline, that's what's weird to you. Like, no, that's not weird at all. But while you have everyone talking to one another, well, you didn't have the Shadow King arrive. Now remember, the Shadow King lives on the astral plane. And so with the Shadow King living on the astral plane, he has the ability to take over people's minds so easily. And so we see the Shadow King take over the mind of a young woman and begin to use her abilities as a way to kill off other people at Avalon. Now for Mystique, she's kind of wondering how in the world can they stop stop the Shadow King. But for her, the only solution is to kill off his current host. And so you have Mystique do that. But the problem is that you have Danmask tell Mystique, the only thing you did right now is just slow Shadow King down for a brief second because he lives on the astral plane. Yes, you killed off his current host, but he can find other hosts to take over. And just like that, you have the Shadow King begin to take over different people's minds across Avalon to begin the process of using them as a way to hopefully kill off Avalon, but to kill off our heroes as well. And so for Destiny, she can't believe what she is seeing at the moment. The whole idea of all of Avalon being burned down and being killed off by different people that she took in. But that's the Shadow King for you. The Shadow King has the ability to take over people's minds, to push their minds in one particular direction, to make these people act a certain type of way. And so right now at this moment, what we're seeing is the Shadow King winning, the Shadow King being able to just burn down Avalon like he wanted to. And so for Destiny, she's kind of down with the idea of just dying for the cause because there's no point of staying here. But at the same time, she knows that sooner or later, everything is going to burn down. But now we kind of get into the idea of the powers of Danmask. Now for Danmask is a psychic, but she has the ability to kind of use these psychic blades as a way to dig into people's minds and use those blades as a way to kill off people who are there in the astral form in someone's body or some other being trying to control the mind of other people. And so when she does use her psychic blades, she does go into the main host of the Shadow King at the moment. Now, unfortunately for her, the Shadow King was able to escape her blades just barely. But the point is that Shadow King sooner or later will come back here and try again to finish the job. And so for our heroes, their best option at the moment is to use Danmask to hopefully kill off the Shadow King. But before you have the Shadow King arrive, you have Cypher express his anger with our heroes because he blames our heroes for bringing this chaos to Avalon. But it's Nightcrawler saying, have you lost your mind? Like, I know that you have not really been outside of Avalon to kind of get a better idea of how the rest of the world is like. But let me tell you right now, for you to believe that this right here would always stay perfect for the entire time is wild and crazy because Apocalypse is out there. Apocalypse sooner or later would have found this place without our help and do the same thing he's doing right now, burning it all down. Like, you need to realize this is the real world. The real world is dying all around you. So it's time for you to stop acting like a child and believe in some fake dream and realize it's time for you to stand up for a cause, which is fighting against Apocalypse. But while you have our heroes having that conversation, you then have Mystique begin to be taken over by the Shadow King. Now, the Shadow King is trying to force her to use her powers. So, for example, you have Mystique change into Sabretooth. But while you have that going on, Nightcrawler realized that when he does teleport to a different dimension. And so we kind of get the idea that he has the ability to possibly teleport over into the dimension where the Shadow King is at. But he wants to bring Switchback and also Danmask with him as well. And here's the reason why, because for Danmask, with those psychic blades, she should be able to defeat the Shadow King once and for all, but also take down his main host. But for Switchback, she can go back in time to allow Danmask a little bit more time to be able to achieve that goal. Because for Nightcrawler, when he does teleport, it's just him for a brief moment entering a different dimension before he teleports back into the main reality. But with Switchback, we can go back in time to give Danmask 10 to 20 more seconds to be able to use her psychic blades on the Shadow King. And so you do have our heroes go through that plan. And when they do, just like that, there goes the Shadow King. She was able to use her blades to take him down, to take down his main host, to save everyone back on Avalon, or well, we thought. Because as we get into the ending of the storyline, we do see the Shadow King just try his best for one last attempt to finish the job that he was sent there to do. He tries to use another mutant ability to kill off Destiny, but you do have Cypher jump right in front of the blast to protect his adoptive mother. And for me, it's kind of like, man, a callback to Fall of the Mutants, where you had Cypher die trying his best to protect his friends, but this time his mother. And so with the death of Cypher, it's Destiny saying, you know what? Fine, let me go ahead and go back with you guys back to America to talk to Magneto. But now we have to jump over to Generation Next, issue number 4. Now, guys, for me, I didn't read the entire Age of Apocalypse event before I began to record every single video y'all have seen so far. So there are some issues I never read when I was growing up as a kid, and Generation Next was one of them. And so I had somebody tell me like, man, the ending of this series is pretty sad. I'm kind of like, wait, what's gonna happen? And guys, let me tell you, it was a pretty sad ending. But getting into the opening pages for this issue alone, we pick up with Mondo. Now remember, for Colossus, he is a teacher for the next generation of mutants to be used by Magneto to fight against Apocalypse. And so for Mondo, he's one of those few mutants, but the entire team has snuck their way inside the core. Now remember, the core is the main power source for Apocalypse Empire. But on top of that, Illyana was being kept there as a slave to help keep the place running. And so you had the team sneak in there in different types of ways to find Illyana. Mondo had found her, and so his main goal right now is trying to just get her out of there before he gets caught. But you do have some other people who work at the core kind of realize that there's something off about Mondo, so they want to have a one-on-one conversation with him. But before we're able to see that conversation, we jump back over to the rest of Generation Next. Now remember, they got caught at the end of our last video by Sugar Man, the man in charge of the core. But let's also not forget that for Husk and also Vicente, and I really hope I pronounced that name correctly, they had combined their powers to pretend to be another person known as Quietus. Now Quietus was second in charge of the core, but with them pretending to be Quietus, it allowed them to walk around facility without anybody thinking that they might be somebody else, to allow them to hopefully find Illyana. The problem was the Sugar Man realized there's something off about Quietus, and so you had a Sugar Man give our heroes a test which they had technically failed. And so now it's a Sugar Man and his forces attacking our heroes, trying to capture them. Now, on the outside of the facility, you had Colossus and Shadowcat just waiting for the right moment. And of course, they come in on the right exact moment to help out their students. Now, while doing that, you have Colossus basically order them to go and find Illyana, to find Mondo, because he got word that Mondo had found Illyana. And so while you do have our young heroes trying to go find Mondo, the Sugar Man overheard, and the Sugar Man now knows to also look for Mondo, but to also know that, hey, they came here looking for a young girl named Illyana. So now she is his next target. But this also begins the whole idea of the sad moment in this storyline, because you do have Mondo being able to get rid of the people who believe that he was some random intruder, which he was, but you do have Mondo get rid of him. Now, there is this young girl named Ash, and Ash is just a regular human, but she was very close to Illyana, but she also wants to escape with Illyana to get out of the facility. The thing is, for Mondo, he was told to only get Illyana, but it's Mondo kind of saying like, you know what, let's try our best to get you out of there as well. Now, you have Skin and Chamber find Mondo, and they agree with the idea. The problem is that, man, you have the Sugar Man kill off Mondo just like that. And with the death of Mondo, you didn't have the Sugar Man being able to grab Illyana. So it's kind of like, there goes one of the young students that was under Colossus' watch, just died just like that. But you do have Colossus appear. Now, when he does appear, he kills off the Sugar Man, right? Or we're led to believe he had killed off the Sugar Man. But with him now being reunited with Ileana, it's kind of like, okay, this is a great thing. But the problem is the entire team is now surrounded by different people who worked for the Sugar Man. And it does look like they're not going to be able to make it. Now, for Colossus, the mission was to get Ileana out of there and back over to Magneto. And so you have Colossus order Kitty Pryde to get him, her, and Ileana out of there and leave the rest of the kids behind for a short period of time. Now, once you have Kitty Pryde do that, Kitty Pryde wants to go back inside to save their students. But you have Colossus say, no, I'll go back inside while you get Ileana away from this facility. And so he goes back inside, or he tries to. But the problem is that he has to hurry and get inside before the door closes. And so this leads into the sad moment, because as you have Colossus just run back over to the core, try to get inside before the door closes right in front of him. And all he can do now is just watch the different students that he took under his wing die one by one by one. Just like that, left and right. And so Colossus has to go back to Kitty Pryde and Ileana to say that he failed. That the next generation of mutants that Magneto had recruited had all died on this suicide run. And so this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.